And on that note, if you were to look at the state of the Cloud Native Compute Foundation today, which is under the Linux Foundation, they have something called the Cloud Native Compute Foundation Canvas, and there's probably 100 plus companies, large companies and startups with stickers on it at various levels of the stack that are contributing to some open sourceness in their product, whether it's Kubernetes related or something around observability or whatnot. Um, and so to me, well, what's clear is that pretty much most startups in the infrastructure space have a level of openness to their product. And I know open source is kind of a little bit behind you in a sense, but maybe I'd love your take on for me, I see it going three ways. You can kind of like reach a dead end and maybe die a quick death commercially at least, or take a very long time, or kind of close it and then move on that way. Do you agree? Like, how would you counsel or advise a CEO that's starting up a company that's going to be open? How to think through this?
I agree with your scenarios, but let me start with something I find even more profound, which is we are building a new type of civilization on bits and a digital civilization, and the pandemic has pushed the world much quicker there. And and as we do that, we will have principles that it's built on that we didn't realize were principles until thousands of years later. We will look back and celebrate them, like we celebrate in European history Magna Carta. So that was such an important document, and it set the beginning for governance where there's a balance of power and the king is not the only one deciding and he has to listen to others. So it was sort of a fundamental document to set the path for civilization. I believe that free software and open source software is the same thing in the modern world. The GPL license, the Apache license, the other licenses, those will be seen as the Magna Cartas of these days. And we will forever be thankful that there were these pretty uh, unique individuals who drove it, like who made sure we got there, and that it became a movement and a central principle for how to build societal digital infrastructure, which I think it is about. So I think it's even bigger now than it was, and it will forever be in history books as a major step. I will say, thank heavens it happened. Like, what if it didn't happen? We would have a crappy infrastructure. So then, to concretely to go to your question, if you are an open source business, how do you build it? I believe that the conditions, the business conditions have changed dramatically from MySQL days. So I wouldn't take any immediate learning from MySQL because back then it was different. You had Linux distros, you ran on your own servers, the world of computing was much smaller than today. Today everything it runs on some sort of cloud infrastructure, and instead of downloading software, you upload your image or your Docker, your container somewhere. So the mechanisms are different, but you are right that, which has always been true, that open source is not a business model. It's a production model, maybe a distribution model, but it's not a business model. So you must have, if you're going to make money and operate it through business on open source, you must figure out how you make money. But you can make a ton of money with cloud services. Look at, like we talked about MySQL, we built it to an amazing company. Sun Microsystems bought it for an amount that was unheard of back in the days. Today, if you go to AWS and ask them what their revenues are of MySQL based products, RDS and Aurora, it's in the billions
Oh, wow.
per year. Okay, this is my guess. I don't have it from any
Yeah,
source, so
sure. But
pardon
yeah,
me if
that
I'm
sounds about right.
violating.
Sounds about right.
But everything points to the fact that they make billions
Yeah.
of a product that little us developed a long time ago. So there's enormous business, but you have to navigate the cloud world, the monetization. Uh, I do think it has always been true that open source is not a business model; it's a production model. I think it has always been true that in business you have some people who will spend time to save money and others who will spend money to save time. That is the principle that still is valid. And the third one is that in the open source world, branding matters, meaning what you call it can be the basis of your business. Red Hat did that. The word Red Hat was the community edition originally. Then suddenly they flipped and said, nope, Red Hat is the name of our commercial offering. If you call it Red Hat, you must pay. If you don't pay, you must call it something else. And people were furious in the beginning, but it worked. Android is the same. You could use Android, it's free and open source software. Just take the code and create your own mobile phone. But if you want to put the name Android on your phone, you have to sign a partnership agreement with Google and agree to all their other terms. So it shows that branding affects the things. And of course, AWS doesn't use the word MySQL in their products because the brand is not owned by them, but they can use the code. So there's the entrepreneurs are now thinking about it. They should look at those things and figure out in current conditions what is a wonderful business model that maintains the innovative production model of open source, yet gives the company a way of monetizing in a wonderful way to grow a big company. Like we have great companies, Elastic and I'm blanking on all the names now, Databricks, just phenomenal open
Yeah,
source
yeah.
companies that are out there.
So on that note, though, Andreessen Horowitz is one of the key sort of things that they look for in enterprise companies is there a B2C like groundswell within the enterprise before like Slack or I guess Salesforce or something like that. And so often that's only possible with some degree of either very cheap or it has to be free software. And so in that sense, yes, I heard you that open source should be looked at as a production model and maybe a distribution model. But then when you have like, the most powerful venture capital firm in the Valley saying, hey, this is what we look for in enterprise software companies, we're looking for these kinds of trends. It makes it it puts a lot of pressure to kind of like make sure that there is a degree of freeness in your distribution too, right? Or cheapness, I guess.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I don't look at it that way. I believe in the sanctity of the entrepreneur. Like the entrepreneur will invent something that nobody else thought of, not even Andreessen Horowitz or even any other VC. So some of the best new startups will go against any recommendations that you read in the blogs of the VCs. Sure, for most people, like normal people like me, we have to listen to the VCs because they have a very important message and they have pattern matched across thousands of companies, so it's very relevant what they are seeing. But you also, but the absolutely best startups, they go against the grains. They do something nobody did before, nobody believed in before, and 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 if you have that, then just go for it. But the thing there is that when we talk about open source, we mustn't be in the old world where that's why I was not sure it's a distribution model. Open source is a distribution model if people really download software, but who has software running on their own machines anymore? Who even has a machine anymore? Like it's all running in the cloud, and so the nature is different. The nature of the deployment of software. But I think if you think deeply of how it works there, you could still build something that has low friction, that people can fall in love with and adopt quickly. And that's how you get the groundswell and the freemium model that then allows you to upsell into the enterprise. There's a lot of paths there, but there are also roadblocks. Like we never used to worry about cybersecurity before. Now it is an absolute requirement. At HackerOne, if you would come to me and say, Martin, here's a great add-on to Slack or a browser plugin or something, I wouldn't take it. We don't take anything without first doing a security assessment of it, no matter how useful it is. And as a company, we block it. We have control over everybody's laptop. We block those things. And of course, HackerOne is a progressive, smart cybersecurity aware company, but it will happen to all companies. They will have very strict regimes on what kind of software is allowed to run on their servers or in their software environments, and that could put some sort of blocking on spreading software quickly. So you really have to think creatively, and that's why don't ask me, ask those new entrepreneurs who are now thinking about it, because they are growing up with it. I'm observing it from a little bit from a distance, or from a but the young who are inventing things today, they will invent something that makes a lot of sense and builds amazing businesses.
Yeah. So on the
That's always
topic
the
of,
problem when an experienced person like you interviews an experienced person like me. It all sounds so convincing and so smart, but we are wrong all the time. Like, even us experienced people are wrong all the time. And when you listen to advice, sometimes you have to go against the advice, because that old dude who has so much experience has actually not realized that the world has changed in some fundamental way.
yeah,